Okay guys, Corey here with Toothless Reptiles in San Diego. We're getting ready to microchip all of the black dragons. So what this entails, since there's 20 of them, basically I didn't feed them yesterday. Their metabolisms are pretty fast, so it usually takes about a 24-hour period for them to digest stuff, as far as what I've seen, at least far enough into where they're not going to regurgitate. They're going to not be happy when I have to hold them backwards and pin their legs to do the microchip. As far as pain, you know, it's up for debate on whether monitor lizards actually process pain the same way that we do. You know, obviously a reptile has a much higher tolerance for pain. At least that's kind of how it's interpreted. But it's a small 15 gauge needle. It's literally the smallest microchips they make to put in animals. It's a small 15 gauge needle. Most microchips are a 10 gauge needle, which is gigantic, and you certainly couldn't do that in the leg of a hatchling water monitor. So basically what I'll do is I'll pull them out one by one. I'll candle them for sex, so we'll use the egg candler, and I get their tail over the top of it, and I kind of pinch it between my fingers and the rubber tip on the candler, and it forms a pretty good light tight seal to where it becomes translucent. And you can see there's a blood vessel in there. Well, there's a couple blood vessels in there. On the males, the blood vessels tend to be a little larger and more prominent. On the females, they're not as large and prominent, which is another reason why I wait a couple weeks before I wait as long as I can, honestly, before I microchip and sex the animals. It just helps their vascular system kind of settle in a little bit better, makes it a lot more accurate. Obviously there is room for error. It is not foolproof, but when you're dealing with sexing an animal, it is either an A or a B. It is either a male or a female. You have a 50-50 shot. So if you can find any you know, reliable variation between sexes, between babies, especially when you have large quantities like this to test from, it's pretty easy to spot, you know, the males and females. The only drawback of that is obviously we're not guaranteeing anything, but we did develop this from the DNA sexing stuff that we were doing many years ago. It's like 6 years ago or something. So we will continue to just candle them for sex, and then obviously we'll microchip them, and then what I do is I jot the last couple digits of their 15-digit ISO microchip ID number on the sheet, and then I'll put a male or a female next to it, or I'll put a question mark next to it if I'm not really sure. And then if we do have a question mark next to an animal, then we generally go off of the odds of the clutch. So if I have 5 question marks, but I had 5 females that I thought were for sure females, chances are those question marks are males, because you're going to end up usually with about 75% of your clutch being male and 25% being female. There's just always a larger number of males per clutch in all large varanids. It's not exactly proven whether they are temperature dependent on the number of sexes you get in a clutch. That's mostly because nobody sexes their animals, so it's obviously hard to do that. Also, it is a little hard to do it when most people in the industry stick to an 85 or 86 degree temperature in incubation. So if you're not getting, you're number one, not able to sex the animals or not willing to, and number two, you're not willing to vary your incubation temps, then you have zero data to be able to use to figure out whether these guys are temperature dependent or not. So without, you know, a large number of people giving good data and being consistent and willing to try some new stuff, which is really hard to get a lot of the old timers in the reptile trade to try new things, and to kind of be more scientific, it's we can't develop the data, so I'm stuck doing it all on my own. So I only have the sample sizes that I have, which, you know, obviously makes the data less viable, because the more sample sizes you have, the more accurate your data becomes. The more input that you have, the larger the sample size, the larger the window of your data. So it's a lot easier to pick out anomalies and full-on percentages when you have a large amount of data and a large number of animals to work with. So That's a little side note. But what I generally do is I will sex them. I'll separate them out into male and female, which should give us kind of a visual representation of the ratio of male to female. And then if it is like a normal number, then I usually will separate the males and females because I do have some people driving down to pick up their animals and I'm not shipping them, so it just makes it a lot easier to tell them, hey, that these are all females, these are all males, find one you like from here and find one you like from up there. It just makes it a lot easier. Otherwise, they pick an animal that they like, I have to scan it, and then I tell them whether it's male or female, and if it's a, you know, when you're dealing with 20 lizards, it's just a huge pain in the butt. So, yeah, that's how it's going to play out. So I'll start pulling these out, we'll microchip them. I'll jot down, I'll sex them real quick, jot down what they are, and then I will separate them into the buckets, and then into the totes, and then we will go from there. So I'll switch over to the kind of warp speed video, I guess, on the GoPro, and we will, so you guys don't have to sit through me doing all this crap. If you want to see more information on how I microchip the animals, you can look on my YouTube channel. There's a whole video dedicated to how to microchip these guys, and there's also a whole video dedicated on how I handle them for sex. So feel free to watch those videos. I have made some adjustments since then, so there are little variations that have been done since I have made those videos, which were done probably 2 or 3 years ago. So keep that in mind if you really are going to start, you know, if you're producing animals and you really are going to start doing this stuff, you can find my cell phone number on all of our pages, including our website. So feel free to call. Don't text me a 900-page long text with a bunch of questions in it. I will literally just text you back my phone number and have you call. I don't mind the telephone calls. It's a lot easier to convey information, especially stuff that is very intricate and detail-oriented. It's not, the stuff that we do here with sexing an animal and microchipping an animal is not, you know, it's not suitable for text messages. So it is much better to convey all that stuff verbally. It just seems to come across a lot better and a lot more technical. So let's get started with these guys. They're probably not going to be happy, but I am going to give them cut up chicken breasts later today. So hopefully that will bring their spirits back up. So we're hopefully going to start shipping these guys out the week after next week. So they will get chipped and then they will have a week to heal. I like to drop the humidity down in their enclosures while they heal, just to make sure the little tiny hole closes up, which it should be closed up in a matter of hours, honestly, after you microchip them all. So what I will do is I will pull their water tubs out and let them kind of dry out for the day, and that usually will seal up any wounds that they do have. And then later on tonight, or even maybe tomorrow, I'll put their water dish back in, and I'll probably feed them then. I probably won't offer food while they don't have a water source. It's not a really good idea. So I will offer them those chicken breasts tomorrow because I'm going to pull their water tubs out. So we will go from there, and we'll switch over to the time-lapse warp speed stuff. Well, we are all microchipped and sexed. It looks like we ended up with, I think, 7 female and 13 male, which is actually pretty good for females. Generally, I end up with about 5. So it's not really that big of a difference, but I mean, on a small clutch like this, it does change the odds. But what's funny, it's so cool seeing all these little guys in tubs. There's so many of them. So, and these guys all came out perfect. No deformities or tail fusions like a lot of other guys are getting. We incubated at 80 degrees, which solved all the developmental problems. So we had all 20 hatch out perfect, absorbed all their yolk, and they came out perfect, and I'm really, really excited about this clutch. You can see the animals are super dark, and they'll be heading off to their new homes very soon. Pretty cool. Look at all those ladies. Keep feeding.